Just a quick update before today's episode. As you may have noticed, it's been quiet over here for a while. That's because I've been on maternity leave and now have a beautiful daughter at home. It's also because I've focused on hosting some live events the past year and a half, and I'm very happy to be able to share recordings of 3 of those conversations in the upcoming weeks. I'm just in the process of figuring out what combining podcasting and family life may look like. If you want to support this work, you're so welcome to support the podcast on Patreon. So visit patreon.com/forestofthought for more information. Okay, let's jump into today's episode. Welcome to the Forest of Thought with me, Ingrid Rieser. Caroline Ross has spent decades being immersed in Daoism, art, crafting, and foraging, and she spent 10 years touring with her rock band. Today, her practice weaves these diverse threads together into a philosophy of life centered on embodied living, exploring the way in the Daoist sense of the word, and making art as if the earth mattered.
It's a very essential part of my work is connecting people with physical things that are from the earth. So colourful rocks or oak galls. And you see people's shoulders go from 5 inches up right the way down to here in a day, whether it's Tai Chi or the foraging practices or the art. You watch the faces are scrunched at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day everything's more relaxed. And those things are real.
This conversation was recorded with a lovely audience at the Seamus Library in Uppsala, Sweden, in November of 2024. This is Caroline Ross. Caro, I'm so happy to have you here.
So glad to be back in Sweden.
Yes. And as always with you, it's almost impossible to introduce you because you do so many different and wonderful things. And so you've been a visual artist, you've been a touring rock musician,
allegedly,
and a music producer.
Yep.
You've been a Tai Chi teacher for 20 plus years and practicing for longer.
Yep.
You started basically a cult following online, doing your foraged and found paints and art materials.
Guilty as charged.
Yes, and also now writing on Substack most weeks.
Every week.
Every week.
Pretty much.
Which is also wonderful.
Why?
But I was wondering if you wanted to start there, because you're doing all of these seemingly disparate things, and then when I know you, all of these things are so you, they make perfect sense. And so I was wondering, can you say something about this living thread that's sort of tying together these various strands or paths of your life?
It would be lovely to send this conversation back to young Caro when she was over there, then over there, then over there, doing all the different things and feeling bad about being an artist, being into science, being into literature, being into Tai Chi and embodied movement, being into music, and thinking that every 5 years or 10 years changing was a bad thing. And I always felt, and I know a lot of people who feel guilty about not having this one very strong career, profession, direction, and it's a big hang-up. I don't know how it is here in Sweden, but until very recently, I think in Britain, it was to not be able to say what you did, who you were, how you earned your living, was kind of a stigma attached. And I was one of those people too, however alternative I thought I was as a goth. And then as a...
Oh yeah, you were also a goth.
I was a goth.
That's how you started. A Tai Chi goth.
I was a Tai Chi goth.
Yeah.
And it works because the clothes are black in Tai Chi also.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
So yeah, I didn't wear eyeliner to class, but I was a Tai Chi goth indeed. And it was confusing because I'm interested in life. I mean, that's the only thing that hasn't changed about me. I'm perennially interested in people and things. and the planet, the weather. I'm interested in all of it. But that looks like a mess from the outside, especially if you are from a judgmental culture, which I am. And if your personality is slightly judgmental, which mine was. So the person one judges the hardest is oneself. And so I would also perennially go out with fantastic people who were very definitely one thing. And so I would judge myself even more harshly that I was not this, like a V-shaped valley with the water flowing down it, and you could point and go, this is the River Thames, you know, this is definitely that river. Whereas I felt like tributaries and like a pond over here and a river over here. And then I realized I just, writing the next book, the follow-up to Found and Ground, so this is really recently, maybe at age 50, I realized my viewpoint was wrong and that there was a thread connecting it all. And my viewpoint was very low to the ground, like a little sparrow, and I needed to go up much higher like an eagle or a hawk and look down at the watershed. I don't know what your word for that is, but it's just like where every mountain you can see where the water comes to, collects and goes down and then goes to the same river, to the sea. And I was looking down almost in a dream of a landscape of my life, and there was the hill of Tai Chi, and there was the mountain of art, and there was the valley of music. And okay, it's the same rain gathering, and then it's going out to the same sea, which is my death. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that life makes much more sense now I'm an old lady.
That's good.
Yeah.
And inspiring for someone like me who is the same, has the same affliction.
Just fly slightly higher up, it'll all make sense.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if it makes sense in my head. Let's see if it makes sense spoken as well. It connects to the original inspiration for this series of events that I'm doing, which started with this concept from Spinoza, who was a philosopher in the 1600s. And he had this idea of conatus, which could be loosely translated as life force or driving force. And he was saying that each being has its own conatus, its own drive to persist in being what it is. And so the oak has its particular conatus, it's doing its oaking, and Caro is caroing, and Ingrid is Ingriding. And that's maybe why these things, now that I know you, they all make sense, because they're all somehow an expression of your conatus. And that's like when we manage to find that, if conatus is each of ours own particular expression of the life force that is in everything, then, when we are able to really allow our conatus to express itself fully, because probably sometimes we're blocked from it, or we don't think that we're not able to listen to it or connect to it. But when we express that fully, then beautiful things happen.
They can really happen. The difference between a living culture and a compromised culture, I can't speak for Sweden, but I'll speak for the UK, is that in a living culture, your conatus, your way of ingriding, would be respected and would find its place, and would be useful, and not just to you, which is why I don't use the term self-expression very much. As one, after so much Tai Chi and Dao, like, what is the self anyway? It's a useful construct. It's definitely someone here speaking who you refer to as Caroline, but I'm not so sure. I appear to be here, but in a living culture, we create things in a context of family, of clan, of the country, of the landmass, of the watershed that we're in. And I think that there have been other times and places where to have yourself fully doing what you really the urge is to do is a good thing. Of course, there are people who are very powerfully getting on with dreadful things, and I don't necessarily support that. But I think that's because the culture as a whole is broken, not necessarily because they're evil people.
No.
So for me to finally find a way to teach in the different contexts that I teach in, to give people a certain confidence, and I don't mean, again, self-confidence in the traditional therapeutic Western sense, It's more like knowing the ground that you live on, that you're allowed to be here. Most Westerners I meet don't believe they're allowed to be here.
And in what way?
There's this sort of apologetic and yet also fragile way of being. That when you've done a lot of martial arts or Tai Chi or meditation, I've not done so much sitting meditation, but over the 25 years of Tai Chi, there's a sort of, there's a fragility in my culture and apologetic and don't know how to be in the world. And only practice, like having a practice, I think gets over that for those of us who are not traditionally religious. I think also, many religions will give you that ground, but I can't speak to them really.
And so what does it really entail to become grounded and to become also, maybe, does this also connect to embodiment? Because that was one of the things that we talked about in preparation for this as well.
I really think, my own opinion is that it does, but of course there are going to be people who can't take that path for whatever reason, but as a reasonably normal-bodied, able-bodied person, until I got on my feet and got pushed around in a class of people every week and then tried to move smoothly and tried to find the ground again, I didn't find who I even was. I didn't know who I was under pressure, and I didn't know how to not resent difficulty. And I didn't know how to work with frustration. Like all the things that would be great to teach at school, right? How to work with frustration, how to not have arguments just because of difference. All the things that we now talk about in the culture with the culture wars, I first dealt with physically with quite tall men pushing me every week, which is highly unpleasant in a really interesting kind of way. And I think it was the tempering that I needed, like the way a sword gets tempered. One of my teachers would say, a sword doesn't like being tempered, like heated up red hot and then beaten with a hammer and then quenched in the water. The sword is not having a fun time. But if you want a sword or a knife to hold an edge, which you do, then it has to be very hot, very beaten very hard and then quenched. I'm not saying I was beaten very hard, don't worry. That would be illegal and it was fine. But there's something about difficulty as medicine. And I don't want to say that it is, but that's how I found it to be. Yeah.
And how does, so that was through your Tai Chi
mainly.
Practice. How does this connect to your foraging and of the being being close to the ground in that sense as well? Because, or do you want to say something about that practice first? Because people who don't know you won't know what it means. What do I mean when I say foraging for you?
I'm always foraging, and it started off with mushrooms and berries, I suppose much more like the Nordic way. And I would do that every year in Scotland. And then it became foraging for things for art materials, which are often there right beside the food. So you might be finding, what do you call them here, Carl-Johan swamp? Yeah, sep or porcini. And then next to that you'll have an acorn cap, which makes beautiful silver black ink, which might be next to a poisonous berry that makes great red ink. And so my baskets are very separate, don't worry. So drink, ink, food. And it became, for me, foraging is the equivalent of putting the sword in the water. It's what we might call in sort of Daoist terminology, quenching. That's not being beat. That's not. I think the Tai Chi was the hammering and the heating, if you like, and then you have to have a time. For me, in nature, and I know nature is a degraded term, but I'm still going to use it, just like I'm going to use the word beauty. I'm reclaiming them for ordinary people who are fed up with university speak, to be honest. I think that foraging for me is where I reach ground physically. And I just stop being quite so neurotic. And I think it's the same for most people, unless they were scared of nature for some specific reason. It's a very essential part of my work, is connecting people with physical things that are from the earth. So colourful rocks or oak galls, they get to smash them up in their hands, or they get to forage and break them and turn them into things. And you see people's shoulders go from 5 inches up right the way down to here in a day, whether it's Tai Chi or the foraging practices or the art. You watch the faces are scrunched at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day, everything's more relaxed. And those things are real. I think it helps with suffering. I would like it if people were suffering less. And you can sneak that into paint making and Tai Chi way easier than talking about it. She says, talking about it.
Yeah. Well, talking about it can be good too, perhaps.
Yeah, afterwards, definitely.
So you mentioned beauty. And I know that we've talked previously about how you started art school at a time when beauty was sort of a banned word.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to talk about beauty.
You also weren't allowed to talk about the fact that you weren't allowed to talk about beauty.
Okay. So that's...
Yeah.
That's even another level.
It's only now looking back that I realised that art college, my degree, so I did a foundation to age 17, 18, which is 2 years, and it was amazing. And that's art education, very much based on the Bauhaus in Germany, the early Bauhaus. So you learned a lot of skills, you had a lot of open-ended projects, and the people there knew how to do things like printmaking or sculpture or ceramics. So if you had
the physical knowledge.
Things, yes, and they were good at it. So, what I would call professors, tutors. And then, so I thought, great, go to art college, do a degree, do an MA. And there was nothing. There were just, there was no tuition whatsoever. And you were supposed to already know what you were about. So you were to have an idea and illustrate it. And that was that. That was the next 4 years.
Yeah. So what has been your path? It seems then that because I know that your commitment to beauty now is very strong.
Hugely, yeah.
Yes. Can you say something about that journey then, from that place where that was maybe suppressed?
In many ways I was confused, and I think a lot of young people when they're at university, when they first arrive, I didn't want to fit in. I've never wanted to fit in, so that wasn't the problem. But I also had no context. There was no context for being someone who adored nature, who had spent already many years practicing a Daoist art, was vegetarian in those days, and dreadlocks, that thing of just like, oh, all right, I'm here now to do art, and then to find that you were in a vacuum. It was very confusing, and I watched a lot of people get into drugs and go down the sort of ecstasy holes, and other people really lose their minds. So pastorally, it was an absolute nightmare. Once I had enough money to get on with the art, it was a question of trying to find a context, and I never did. So even until I had my MA, I never found a context in the art world, and the minute I could, I left and formed a band like most art students, and never drew for 10 years.
You took a break from drawing.
I took a break from art, 100%, because when I came out, it was the Damien Hirst era in Britain, so everything was product, gallery. People would look over my head to see who more important was coming in the room. And when you would go to a gallery opening, it was sexist, and it was classist and ageist and all the wonderful things that we hate. Yeah, so to find in music the collaborative, collegiate, experimental and sort of mycelial way of working, which has become my way of teaching and working now, I didn't find it in art college, sadly. But I did find it in improvising music and working with other people, which is like Tai Chi. You get pushed, and you can't just hit your drummer. That's not fair.
You mean punch?
You can punch a drummer, yeah, but you mustn't.
No.
For better or worse, it taught me such a great deal. But I still apologise to my old bandmates. I probably wasn't the best company. I think I have been waiting for this part of my life. I sometimes want to say that to students who are in their 20s and 30s, like, don't worry. Yes, worry for sure, because the world is changing, but if you get yourself in the right place, the difficulties that arise, you can deal with them. And I don't know where that confidence comes from, but it has been hard won. And you're a mum now, so you know about these things.
Learning step by step.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier as well about, what to do when we meet these challenges or find ourselves at a roads where we're not quite sure what to do. And you've shared in your writing and in our conversations, bringing those questions with you into bringing them to the trees or bringing them into nature. Should we try reading that passage that we talked about previously?
Let's do that.
I don't know if you want to give any context for
sure.
For when this was happening in your life.
So one context should mention as well, which is something that people don't talk about enough even now, is menopause, which is it is talked about maybe the last 6 or 7 years in Britain. There was a really great television programme with an older woman presenter called Kirsty Walk, who's Scottish, and it was about the first time that the big M word was on the TV. Now there's been shows about it and everything, but when I hit mine, which was early at age 42, nothing really was out there. There were some good feminist books, which I've subsequently read, but no one said anything, and certainly not my mum and the generation of aunts. And my friends were not older women at that time, although they are now. And so gentlemen, if you can imagine being a teenage boy again, but being 42, and it coming on in about a month, the surprise. So the hormone rage, like the strange feelings, the totally inappropriate feelings and sensations. As a grown woman who's not expecting that, is just trying to get on with living her life. At that time I was on a boat. Menopause has been, if you like, a big punch in the face for me. And I really am keen on people talking about it, because it can be like childbirth or puberty for people, incredibly distressing and difficult, but when you come through the other side, a genuine portal, a genuine door into change. But because my view is that things are not just for the self, it's for your community too. So if you manage to get through your difficult thing, your parents dying or your menopause or your life-changing illness, when you come through that, you are a resource for your family, for your community, for every way that you live. So it behoves us to get help and do that well. At that time for me, there was no help, so it was just like bang.
And did you realize what was happening? No.
Not so much. No. Not so much, not to start with. Yeah. So at the time I've written this, and when this is 2017, I'm just beginning to be aware that everything's about to really change. And I was in Transylvania in Romania teaching as a resident artist on a year-long course with Andres Roberts and Paul Kingsnorth, the writer, who's a good friend. And the context was, how the hell am I going to survive this era? So there's not just all the hot and the cold at night, there's rage. And I'm not someone who goes around being angry very much. It was like pure, unadulterated anger and rage. And then there's all the inappropriate feelings, obviously left, right, and centre. So, yeah. Then I needed help, and the only thing I could think to do was to ask landforms and trees, because they're what has been there for me in the past. So I was just like, right, I'm in Carpathia. There's huge spruce trees. So I was doing a 24-hour fast with all the other students. I was just taking part. I have questions for the woods again. A year ago to the day, the famous Year in a Day by Lunar Reckoning, I was sitting in a 20-foot circle, carpeted with fallen needles, under a huge spruce tree in Transylvania. I was in Romania of one of 2 artists in residence for a year-long course with Dark Mountain called Fire and Shadow. On reaching the spot where I was to spend the next 27 hours, I dropped my bag, I sat down on a spruce root and looked up at the grand tree beside me. I asked myself, I wonder if this spruce tree produces a sticky resin like the local Scots pine trees back home. At that moment, I put my hand down beside me and immediately felt a large lump of spruce resin, which must have fallen not long before, as it was still soft. Turning it over in my palm, I jumped as the distinct features of a very old woman's face looked back at me. I am not a superstitious person, but at this moment of pareidolia, it felt like a meeting. What was that line in the Lindworm story we'd heard told round the fire only 2 nights ago? An old woman appeared from behind, or perhaps from within the tree. The questions I brought to the woods that night were how to deal with the fierce changes wrought by menopause, of how to reconnect with nature as I had in my youth, and how to be of help to someone dear to me who was suffering at that time. I asked it with a sincere heart, under the full moon, and practically and simply the best I could. In the old stories, as in life, it turns out that the answer you ask for is rarely given in the form you expect. I really felt like I did meet what I would refer to as the spruce tree crone, like from the old Northern European stories, where the old lady who lives in the woods, like maybe Baba Yaga, or it's not nice, it's not fun, it's not pleasant, it's scary, but it was exactly what I needed. And yeah, no human came out. There was just a very strong presence. And what I didn't write in there was that I immediately knew I had 2 choices. I'll tell you a little bit more about how I know these things later. I can remember apologizing to Dougal 2 years ago, going, I don't know how I know things, but sometimes I just do. But there was a sense that I had 2 choices. One was to go home to the UK, see my doctor, get some medicine, and go gently through the menopause and just ignore it and pretend to be normal. That was option 1. And then option 2 was fast and hard. I don't remember specifically answering and choosing, but it appears that how I then came back out of the woods chose that for me. It was... and
it was fast and hard.
It was fast and hard, yeah.
So really meeting that challenge head on.
Had to meet the challenge head on, but also it's a horrible feeling to be skirting around the edge of things when you're interested. You really want to go straight into it, don't you? Mm. It's like if you're interested in something. So yeah, fast and hard.
And then you did, and it seems like then you did pull through that and came out of menopause with that.
Yeah, older, wiser, and with a much better sense of humour, which I think if you meet women who've done that, they're either really angry or laughing a lot. And I'm very happy to say that it's the laughing a lot that's happened. Mm. Nothing really feels as hard as those years. Mm. I mean, I lost my home, I lost my partner, I lost my community, I was evicted, I lost half my belongings. It was just like one thing after another, like a classic, really embarrassing American sort of screenplay.
Except it's your life.
Except it's my actual life. And yeah, to come out the other side of it is great because I don't worry about me anymore. Mm. So I don't have to be thinking about me when I'm with the other people. Again, the irony of saying this all about me on a podcast, but that's good. Mm. It's a burning time to go through those changes. And I hear from my older menfolk friends that it can be very, very similar when hormone changes happen for men too, so I'm not belittling that. Mm. But the suddenness of it has given me pause to think about my practice. And I think you were asking about, excuse me, what difficulty brings out is you find out that you needed to have already started your practice before difficulty. Mm. And I don't think I could say that enough. If I only ever teach people one thing when I'm teaching Tai Chi, it's already be practicing while it's easy. Because you don't know when you're going to be laid low by calamity. Mm. And I think so having a practice is probably the most important thing.
Mm. And could you say something about how you see, what could it mean to have a practice if you're not drawn to Tai Chi or those kinds of movement practices? Or
yeah.
What could it, because I think it can have it can take a lot of different forms.
Totally. And I think it's consistent across cultures that there are embedded and embodied practices. So I have never been to a country where there wasn't something old and good already going on. Never. I've been all over the place, and everywhere has good things, and strands that have been not ignored but slightly let to go dead. So amongst my friends, if I think of 20 people who have practices, they range from singing regularly together with other people, meditation, yoga, tai chi, the famous ones, prayer. So my Orthodox friends have their liturgy, and they stand for hours and they're listening to the spoken word, and then they're taking part in it. With Muslim friends, doing Hajj and always doing the Ramadan fast every year, and being part of Ummah and just like being part of their community. There's physical things they're doing every week. A daily thing, a weekly thing, and a yearly thing is something. That's a thing.
Yeah, that's a thing.
That's a thing. But if you had told me this when I was young, I would have laughed. It's like, oh no, everything must be free form. But it turns out, surprise, surprise, our ancestors knew something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? That all the people before us weren't stupid. Yeah. In my country, you'd think we invented being human last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. The disrespect for the ways of ancestors really is shocking. So for me, it took a long time to keep knocking my head against the wall. But yeah, for me, the practice isn't Tai Chi actually every day.
No, what is it?
No, I do a thing called heart work, which was a new practice from about 15 years ago from my grandmaster. It was built on 40 years of Tai Chi, but he felt like he was Irish, and he felt this really strong connection to St. Columba, and also to the saints and the abbots at Lindisfarne, which is our first abbey where the Vikings came over. Like, I'm not bringing up old beef, don't worry.
We're sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. There was a sense that the horizons and the kind of prayerfulness that he'd grown up with weren't in the practice that he wanted to do. So as he came towards the end of his life, his name is John Kells, he amalgamated his Tibetan Buddhist practice and his Christian past and the sort of movement of Tai Chi, and created three that really stuck, two salutations and a posture we just called the One posture, which are these beautiful short movements. After practicing for about 15 years, I recently started teaching them because I felt like, okay, yeah, I've tested these now. They're what I do most days. And then I go and do Tai Chi whenever I can get and see my teacher and when I'm teaching it. And then yearly, there are things I do in the landscape that I always return to do with foraging, collecting things, and to tending an ancient well, which I clean. So for me, there's the physical movement practice, there's a prayer morning and evening, and then there's these practices on the land. That's taken a while to get something that feels whole. So some of it's quite old, some of it's quite new, and prayer is as old as humans, so that's really, really old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we talked about prayer when you visited last time, and we were saying how prayer can be so many things. It can be, I mean, what we think of it, how people mostly think of prayer as, perhaps speaking to God or a conversation with God, or it can be a conversation with the earth, or conversation with yourself, or meditation. But it can also be something in how we do things.
Yes.
Which is, I think, something we've talked about as well. How could be, mending.
Yes.
Something with love could be prayer.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think about this?
I totally think that.
Weren't we saying something as well as last time you were here about writing, a word for the day, or
yes, you were doing that at that time. You were doing a drawing
for the day as prayer as well.
Because you were drawing something every day and writing a word, I think, every day.
Yes, I think
as
so.
a prayer, and I thought that was really beautiful. I think I started it for a day or two and then didn't do it because I already have this prayer habit. But it's interesting how it changed, and although I don't know everyone in here, so of all the countries that are reasonably similar, actually the UK and Sweden, we have a lot in common as to where we're at with our post-Protestant history, and like where we're at with where we are in Europe, and kind of roughly how much we earn. So there's a lot in common. And my experience of Britain is that it's not particularly prayerful, and why that should matter to someone who possibly, some of my friends think I'm an atheist. I would say that I'm agnostic, because, and how I experience what other people call God. For instance, my sister is a Christian, but exactly how she speaks about God is exactly how I feel about whatever it is that's what I would refer to as the great mystery. So she just says, it happened that I came through the Christian way, but we have almost the same feeling about life. And my brother, who would definitely call himself an atheist, when he talks about how he feels about being alive in the universe, it feels exactly the same as his sister's, which is kind of strange. So I'm now less strong on the terms. I used to meditate every day, morning and evening, just for a few minutes, like 5 minutes in the morning and evening. And then I would do extra if I was on retreat, like on a Zen retreat. I would sit for a week, silent all day, or go to a hut and meditate solo, silent for a week a couple of times. And that was great. But I wanted the practice to be right there in the city, right there in the heart of my normal life, because it didn't feel real if I had to go away to do it. So I went away to practice, to get practiced, but home was where the work was. By the chopping, I lived on a boat, so there was a lot of chopping wood. And if I couldn't pray while chopping wood, it wasn't really the right meditation or prayer. But weirdly, during menopause, I stopped meditating and prayer started happening. I can't tell you why. There was no external stimulus and no one recommended anything. It just happened. And so I wrote a prayer which was called the Earth Prayer, and I just would say it. It had the same cadence as the Lord's Prayer, the Paternoster. And I prayed it for about 5 years. I think it, shall I say it?
Sure.
I think it, yeah, because then a lot of people took it up. I put it on Instagram, and then someone printed it and did a copperplate etching of it, who became a friend, Candace Jensen, and then other people were like, oh, this is my prayer now. So it was...
That's what I was saying about the cult.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
No. Anyway.
Right. I haven't formed a cult, I promise. And if I have, I'm not in it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was and it's grammatically not correct anyway, so that's why I don't pray it probably. It's our mother who is the earth, hallowed be wild nature. Let all life flourish by the natural process, on earth as in all the universe. Help us make for each other our daily bread. Lead us from ignorance and deliver us from tyranny. For the hearth, the source, and the beauty are yours, now and always. Amen. So it was that for like about 4 or 5 years, and then one day it stopped. And I had a voice in my head saying, the great mystery, which was interesting. I was like, okay. So we're praying to the great mystery now.
And that's what you're doing now.
And that's what I'm doing now, yeah. And also, it's a great name for something that's not understandable. Mm-hmm. It's like the great mystery. My Christian friends don't get annoyed. My Sikh friends don't get annoyed. No one gets annoyed. My atheist friends aren't offended. Love it. I can talk about the great mystery all day long and no one minds. So it's like a problem solved.
That's lovely.
Whilst I can also sincerely pray.
Yes.
And that matters.
Yeah, the sincerity matters.
Yeah. In the Daoist classics, there's a great line. It's hilarious. It goes on and on about correct practice. It's so you can meet a great teacher, or you can practice with another student and get good at, following the Tao, or you can just spontaneously attain the Tao. And then it said, anyway, and it gives you loads of instructions. And then it just says, but actually, in the end, sincerity is the whole of the way. It's just great. So it's like, don't read page 1, just go straight to page 2, on page 2. And sincerity was the thing I found the hardest until menopause. Because you have a lot of choice when you're young. You can do this or you can do that. You can be this and that. You can reinvent yourself. But once you're past this particular thing, something is set. And for it to be sincere, I had to let go of a lot of bullshit. So I thank menopause for burning that away.
Yeah, and I think that's what last time you were here, I was also pregnant, and we were saying how it feels like in life we have a process of where we sort of, can call ourselves out on things, call ourselves out on our bullshit, and then we get to a more sophisticated level of bullshit, and then we have to call ourselves out on that, and then we just have to, because we make these more and more sophisticated ways of lying to ourselves. And
Totally did that.
And then hopefully, eventually, if we're lucky, we can sort of get past that and find a place of sincerity, true sincerity.
The great thing is, though, life brings you those challenges. So unless you're very unlucky and you're a millionaire and live with people who only say yes to you ever, in which case your soul shrivels like a little scroggling on a tree, like those winter apples that don't fall off and they're still there in spring. We have a word in England, like no one knows it, but scroggling. Scroggling is such a good word. Yeah. That's what your soul is like if you never have challenges. Like if you really want to grow and do the whole oak tree thing, or even the lichen thing, atmospheric challenges, land challenges, people challenges, health challenges. If you don't have challenges, you stay fragile and you'll break. There's a thing, I don't like the term because it's clunky, anti-fragile, but it's not robust. I'm not robust, and someone could snap me in two if they were strong. But how my soul feels is, and it's not either resilient, because the times are going to be hard. I'm not up for denying difficulty. So training ourselves deliberately with difficulty and not complaining about it, which is what I did until I did Tai Chi. I complained all the flipping time. Just ask my bandmates. When you train with difficulty, you can rely on it. Like we can all rely on difficulty. We can all rely on illness, aging and death, taxes too, but we can rely on difficulty. We can rely on difficult times coming. And we can rely on losing what we love and not being able to hold on to what we already have. We're lucky because we're not billionaires and because we are talking to each other and have social intercourse, which is the most important thing. We get to have difficulty on a daily basis, and that's what I'm glad for. I mean, I hate it during it, don't get me wrong. I'm not smiling while it's hard. But immediately afterwards I am. And I think that's the martial arts side of it. They call it the martial and the civil. If you're in class, that's the martial. But taking that back into life, that's the civil. And it, for me, stopped me being what Australians would call, the British, a whinging pom, like a complaining British person. They do exist, and I was one. And there's that must be really annoying to be around. So just as being part of a community, to find some way to be glad of what's good and to work with what's difficult, that's really the path. It's very hard to put in words what this watershed thing is, what this thread through life is, what this conatus is. But my theme has been difficulty, difficult beginnings, difficult middles, and if I'm lucky, not a difficult end. But if it's a difficult end, so be it.
And that is maybe what has also, like you said, that is how your conatus has maybe become so clear and strong as well. It's through the meeting with that.
I just have a sincere feeling that we are the people who are meant to be here now. Not just me, not just my crew of incredible people like Dougal and Paul and all the wonderful people I work with and meet, which is an incredible blessing, and I don't really quite know how that happened. But us here in this room, if we are aware of the situations we're in and pay attention, all the interesting challenges we could possibly want will come our way. And rising to them is a pleasure. And working with difficulty, even in your physical work, which is another great place to work with it. So when I'm working with Teresa Emmerich Camper in tanning, when a new problem comes up, she's got 15 different ways to have a look at dealing with it. And it's a joy to be a human with an interesting problem, right? And it's just trying to spread that into a larger and larger context.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. I think we're going to take a break soon, but I want to ask you one more question first, which is about what you mentioned about how you know things. And does it relate to this, what we've been speaking about now?
Yeah, okay, here's two things.
Yeah.
One's a secret, which won't be anymore. So before I did lots of martial arts and before I got back in my body and stopped being so sort of what my teacher would have called armoured, so very stiff in the upper body and that. I didn't, everybody's
very aware of how I'm sitting.
Actually then I didn't know things, so I would get a sense that something was dodgy or difficult, or I would have a sense of a situation and I would immediately clamp down on it, like so many people do, not just women, but I think a lot of us go, oh, no, everything's fine, and then something not to be fine. And so now I would listen to my intuition, but that actually came back over years of working with people physically. You sense that they're going to, let's say, punch you in the face, and you know before they do that they're going to do a push or a punch or a kick or whatever. And you're sensing it, but you get to do that in a lesson 500 times. So if you like, you're doing a scientific test. You're doing a repeated test of the same sense, this intuition sense, which if you're working with physical materials, so I'm not a flint napper, but people, once you have enough experience of a physical thing, you just have a sense of how it will shear. Once I'm working with my rocks that I make into paints, after so many years, I kind of know how they'll go. The same with people. And so now when I have a physical sense, I tend to trust it. So that would be the thing I would love to have told young Caroline, is to learn how to do that sooner. But I think only experience does it. The other thing is a test for afterwards, which I do try and pass on. When a right decision has been made, you can get the right answer. Like if I'm given a choice, should I come and see Ingrid in Sweden? It's such a difficult choice. But if I have to make a decision about it, there is no decision to be made. So while there's a yes or a no, while there's a choice, I tend not to make a decision, because I have found that whichever I choose, it's wrong. And I've run it through so many times until I have the knowing feeling. Wait, which required patience, which took me 40 years. So difficult. But really there's a sense that if I wait, I just know. And then there's no residue, no stress, no, oh, I should have made the other decision. While it could have been one thing or another, and this is absolutely written about in all the Daoist classics, you don't make decisions. People mistranslate it as going with the flow. It's not the flow. You're not a leaf on the river. You're more like a salmon. You have agency and you can swim upstream, but you don't go straight down the middle of the river, for instance, upstream to spawn. So it's about finding the pockets in life where you've got maneuverability, but you're not going against what's coming. And that, I feel, when you get that right, there's no bad feeling, there's no residue. And even if it's quite a strong, no, I'm not coming to see you, but there's a sense of peace, which never comes from the other way. So I've kind of given up making decisions.
Well, that's good. But you never experienced that, because I try that too, but then sometimes the time for when the decision has to be made happens before the feeling of clarity.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Does that happen? That doesn't happen for you?
My life's so not important to most people now.
Oh, okay.
I don't work in a university. No one has to have me hand anything in on time. I mean, basically all my deadlines are my own. So it may be that my way would not work for someone who has, a job or a daughter or, all the things.
Yeah, or maybe that if it doesn't work, it means that you could reorganize life a little bit so that it doesn't demand so many snap decisions.
Yeah. And they don't go well for me because but then I haven't had to make one for a while. Mostly just about I save them for food.
It's good, me too. That's the hardest one.
Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee or tea.
Yeah.
I save decision making for small things as much as possible.
Interesting.
And I try to follow my knowing. And that probably sounds fluffy because, I don't do 9 to 5. I don't require much money, so I earn little, and that's fine. And I live very cheaply. And I'm happy to do many things. So that makes life a lot easier. And I also I'm not famous for one thing, so I don't have a profile I have to upkeep.
Yeah.
I think I'm professionally eccentric.
Which is a wonderful thing to be. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all of that. Let's take a little break and stretch and maybe have some tea and coffee and a cookie, and also maybe chat to somebody who you don't know from before. Say something about what you found interesting about the talk so far.
Thank you so much again for the conversation. It was super interesting. I've been taking notes during the conversation, and I noted here a living culture. And I resonate with this concept in the sense that we are not only we are living, plants are living, the animals are living, and the planet also is living. What's also apart from all the living things with our heart, we also experience, let's say, our ancestors that are also living through maybe their ideas are still living through, let's say, books and through other forms of medium. And I think you also mentioned in your conversation that you feel from time to time that your ancestors are telling you things.
Yes.
And my question is that, do you feel responsible of this type of, let's say, interactions with your ancestors, or maybe with your past selves, or maybe with other living beings?
Yeah, what an awesome question. And the practices that I do, to sort of start at the end and go back to the beginning shortly, the practice that I do most days, the heart work, specifically one that's called the back heart salutation. So I sometimes teach these, but yeah, very simple movements. Take about a minute per side. You flip-flop from one side to the other. One of the effects of doing one of these, the back heart salutation, for 15 years was this very visceral bodily sense of ancestors. So my grandmaster had made these, after about 45 years Tai Chi or 40 years Tai Chi, he was trying to get this slightly more relational feeling. So drawing on all his experience of martial arts and meditation, but he had this sense of ancestry, and he felt very strongly, and he would talk about his ancestors, both his actual relatives that we could know, but kind of going back into the mists of time in Ireland and in Britain for himself. For me, when I started doing these movements very sincerely, and let me say that I was the least talented person in the entire school. I had this talent for the physicality of Tai Chi. I could tell you now all the applications and how to do this joint block or what. It was very techne, it was very left hemisphere. Reading Ian McGilchrist's The Master and His Emissary, and looking more at how disconnected I was, and how much I would use my mind as a tool to take things apart, rather than as a lens through which to see things more clearly, and how I would always verge towards systems rather than to gestalts and to wholes. It shook me to the core to realize that in the class of 30 people, I, one of the instructors, was the least talented person with anything to do with, inverted commas, energy, or imagine that you're feeling your ancestors. So I would burst into tears in private with my one-to-ones with my master and say, is this real or not? Does energy exist or not? What is this thing? I was so upset. I couldn't hold paradox. I was the opposite of Keats', description of Shakespeare of the rule of negative capability of a greatness in a person is to the degree to which they can hold paradox and not grasp irritably after certainty. I was literally someone who grasped irritably after certainty, and I had to break that. And I would say that the heart work and the practice in the Tai Chi school did break the thing that needed to be broken. And it's like the lotus root. There's still a thread that stays there. For the thing that actually holds me up, which is not a backbone like stiff British upper lip, it's not that. It's a sensation of knowing where the ground is, knowing the connection to the great mystery. And there's this thing that is not so strong in the Tai Chi, but is strong in my grandmaster's work, of this connection of the heart to people. That's like the front heart. That's the mammalian heart that you would know about, that's written about in songs. And then there's a thing that he just described as the back heart, which is a connection to time before time. And when I have the sensation of that, now that if I practice and I think into that sensation, there's the sense that I'm at the front of a wedge shape, and behind me is not just my grandparents and my ancestors, but then the pre-humans, and right back to amoebas and like possibly even the molecular soup. And I feel them there as kin. So it is not even vaguely abstract to me when it's not a buzzword to say kin. That feels like because they're my actual ancestors, because otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here chatting. There's a sense that I'm representing for the crew who are now gone, and they're behind and they're beloved, and I'm glad they existed because they're absolutely what got me here. And when John first talked about sense them behind you as though they've got their hands and they're going, go on. He said this, and I won't try and do his Irish accent, but it was like they're going, go on, and they're rooting for you, which in English means they're like really wanting you to do well. When we say we're rooting for someone, which is a beautiful word, we want them to go well. And so there is this sense through this practice of which is why I mainly teach this now. I've just started teaching it again. I took 4 years off teaching Tai Chi altogether, and now it's mainly heart work I'm teaching when I'm not doing the art materials, which is, of course, the same thing, because that's like earth ancestors. There's this sense that I am the front person for kin, going back millions and millions of years, and there's this sense that I want to do well by them. It's not. I have a friend who sometimes feels that he is maybe trying to save the world. I don't think he is, and I think he's doing great, but it isn't that. So it's not grandiose. It's like standing there representing for the loved ones who've got me this far. Like, I'm glad to be alive. I'm glad to be alive even in difficult times. I'm glad it's not my nan having to deal with the things that's happening now. She'd be confused and unhappy. I'm occasionally confused, but I'm not unhappy. And there's a sense that with the help of these beings, human and non-human, that I can just be present. And if that means that my work tomorrow is over and I accidentally, go under a very beautiful, fast Swedish train by accident, fine. I don't actually mind. I would rather stick around because there's lots of interesting and beautiful things to do. But if you show up in the way that you're there, like that, with your ancestors, every moment isn't just you present. Like, I don't feel so personal. I think I used to take all hurts personally and all triumphs personally. And neither of it is like that now. So there was a practice for years we were doing of kind of, if we were connecting to touch another person in Tai Chi or in heart work, it was as though it came from all of them also. Oh my goodness. It changed how I even touch people. It is, as you can tell, so hard to put into words what a physical and spiritual practice would do. My I had a friend, a bushcraft friend, who said, if it ain't practical, it ain't spiritual. And that would probably, I wish I could tell you who it was because I can't remember, but my goodness, they were right. So for me, like hiding these, not hiding, secreting these things in amongst very, very practical work, whether it's Tai Chi or paint making or making ink or whatever, or in writing on a website, on the Substack, is really precious to me. There's this Daoist methodology that my teacher Mark Raudver describes as using the false to cultivate the real. And that doesn't mean you do a false thing. The false is like Zen archery or making food for your community or, building a library. That's the false. That's the thing that it looks like you're doing. You get on with that and you do it really well. What happens is you cultivate something else. And that could be community with your library, or with the Zen archery, that could be Zen mind, or with the Tai Chi, it could be oneness with Tao, or whatever it is you're trying to do. I loved this. Once I'd got over being someone who grasped after certainty and started to delight in paradox, I realized that this method of hiding a gem within, there was so much hidden in those cakes we just ate, right? Those biscuits. How much love and community and well-wishing is hidden in them. But you just eat one and you're going chomp, 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 and then you're like, oh, that feels good. Well, that's how I would like to go about things. Of course, I'm undercutting it all by saying that now. So this is the great irony. But hey-ho, it was a good question. I had to spill my beans.
We're glad that you let us in on that little
secret. Yeah.
I'm Ivan. Nice to be here and listening to all of you. I would like to ask you something regarding pain. Because I feel usually when we're here talking about spirituality and communality, we usually do it in a really positive way and trying to have this positive somehow discourse. But whenever we try to live from vulnerability, it's a real struggle because we try to build community from our wounds and from recognizing where we even have reproduced violence and how our lifestyle is in accomplice with lots of disasters worldwide. Talking about Palestine, talking about, how do you manage to deal with pain and somehow spiritual responsibility? Because it's really hard, but I feel we need to address it.
Totally. And again, an amazing question. And my personality is quite bubbly and talkative, the opposite of my mum. And I would say that there's just a family, we're a lot of us teachers in my generation, in my family, my brother and sister for a start. So my way of being in the world is usually, these days, chatty and bubbly, and I sound positive, and that's the way I come across because that's my way of communicating. But my internal practice is all about death and pain and difficulty, and that's why I'm joyful. I don't turn away from them, but I don't feel I have either the lineage of I'm not within a priesthood, or I'm not a counselor. And when running the Tai Chi school, people would come a lot with their difficulty and pain, whether it's familial or country or personal or health or psychological or spiritual pain. And luckily I had people I could take things to. But there isn't any getting away from that. That's the matrix that we're in, and everyone has to deal with it differently. I sometimes have to remind people that because I have a jolly nature, and there's nothing I can do about that, I just generally come across like this, but not to mix it up with spiritual bypassing or ignoring those things. So that's why I have a prayer practice. And that's why introspective practices of meditation, and for me also reading wisdom books, is super important. So I'm lucky I have the Daoist classics, which are tremendous in translation. I don't read Chinese. Although also I read the New Testament from a translation from the oldest Greek sources that there are, which do not have the usual words you would expect, that have been politicized over the years. So it's a real revelation. But for me, there's no getting away from it. So for instance, I flew to Sweden, and I make paints with no plastic, and I teach people how to not use acrylic and to rewild their art practice. But in the last few years, I will have flown about 6 times. I didn't fly for 20 years. And I made a decision based only on mathematics and ease that I would fly to teach for the next 2 or 3 years. So I'm completely culpable and complicit within all these things. In terms of specific political things, I don't speak about them publicly, and I do all that kind of thing privately, because I don't have the heart capacity or emotional capacity to be that person in the world. And I stay very closely aligned with Dougal Hine, and in that phrase, a living culture is his, I would say, although he may have used it from elsewhere. For me, staying connected with people, not running away from questions, always reassessing what I'm doing every year. I go in the winter into a sort of dark time and just reassess what my effect on the world is. A few years ago, it made me really feel like I had to stay closer to home and to, this will sound naff, be a good influence where I am. And so I try to do that, and it sounds very small, but that's what I try to do as much as possible. So I don't know if that answers that, but all the things you mention, I try to keep in my heart. And usually that means private pain. And in terms of what to do about evil, which I think is behind that, it's like an old-fashioned way of putting it, but a lot of my Christian friends don't shy away from it. And I'm more keen to now bring this back in, is that you have to meet it where you find it. Now, in my history, that was in my own family. So even if, again, I die tomorrow, the work that some of us have done together to transform terrible things has been so successful and positive that I can't help but be glad. I may not be able to do that elsewhere. I may not have the life energy left to do that. But I hope that I'm taking it into account as I work. I can't say, and that's for others to judge maybe. But yeah, thank you for that question.
Yeah, maybe taking us back into nature. Many of us here have both felt, experienced the healing power of nature. If we now, according to many natural scientists and according to quite a lot of evidence, are at a point where, well, nature is in a bad shape, and if we just, ask the question, if we are to heal, if we have a role to play in giving back some healing capacity to nature, what would that be? To me personally, it's come through, I love the mountains, and melting glaciers is a very, very powerful thing to do, because it is basically, it's species going extinct in a very mineral way. What do you say to a dying glacier?
Yeah. My friend Nick Hunt, the writer, has just been at I think he's actually been here, and then also in Iceland at the death rite of a glacier, and been writing about that. So being part of the Dark Mountain Project, which I am, and if some of you don't know it, was founded by Dougal Hine and Paul Kingsnorth, I think 2010, 2011. I found it very late, so 2015. And so many people, of course we're here in Seamus, it's ecological grief is, for those of us who pay attention to Earth in any way, it is real. And it's not personal. Again, it's widespread. And I think our countries are all feeling it, but just lots of people deny that they feel it. So they feel terribly anxious and they feel a loss all the time. But they haven't put it in a place because they're fearful to do it. So there were years where I just grieved with that. Way before Extinction Rebellion, actually. It was sort of earlier than that, I think, just because of my age and what I had been reading. But it didn't, after a while I got that apathetic thing that can happen where you go, well, there's nothing I can do. Humans are evil. It's like the Matrix, Agent Smith, you're a virus. And it does not help. And it's also racist. There are loads of people living on the earth doing amazing things. And humans are nature. And so, speaking of my own country, and in the south of England where I'm from, coppicing, the cutting of hazel and birch, but mainly hazel trees, very low. They can live for thousands of years even, but hundreds of years is common where they don't live that long normally. And the woodlands that are managed in this very, very human way have 15 times the biodiversity. It's a very specific way of managing, and you cut a different place each year. And it feels very, if you like, machinistic. But no, the animals have time to go round that each year they move to the next bit, and you have this beautiful succession, which never happens in an overstood natural hazelwood. And when I remembered that we are meant to be here as part of it all, it isn't that the grief goes away. Grief, by the way, doesn't go away. It's just a sign of love. Grief is just proof you loved. If we didn't grieve nature, how could we even say we had loved it? And I grieve for the nature in Britain that I've never seen because our country is so covered over with tarmac. So there's a sense that I have to re-find my place in nature, which I've done actually weirdly through bushcraft and through camping and simple things. And I think everyone's way will be different. And I don't know where we go, and there is no answer, because the glaciers recede and the insects are not even I don't think I saw a wasp this year at home. Not one that I could tell you about. So I know what this collapse is. I don't have the answers, I'm not that person, but I know I have to witness it. And also I have to not fall into self-pity, because I'm not going to be used to my nieces. I don't have children deliberately, not for ecological reasons actually, I just never wanted them. But I have 7 nieces and nephews and 3 great nieces and nephews. And I'm damned if I'm going to sit here and whinge. So there's a sense of finding a way forward, because I'm responsible for those who come after in my family, and also for students and friends in my kin group. So there's no answers, I'm sorry. But yes, a kind of wry smile and a wave from someone feeling the same. I wouldn't trust someone who said they had all the answers. The predicament we're in isn't a problem. It isn't a problem that can be solved. It's a predicament, a paradox that has to be lived through. There's some very great communicators and thinkers who can help us. But for me, the great teacher is Earth, and I need to pay more attention.
I think that's something that you do so well, and every post that you make online, I feel it's that you've been on your knees digging somewhere, and I just have to share this lovely thing that happened when we arrived here. Because this is in the department for Earth Sciences. And just outside here, Carl stops outside this display where there's all of these different rocks and minerals, and then there's a book open to a page showing all of these different rocks and crystals and minerals. And she goes, "That's the exact book when I was a kid. I looked at that page. I studied that page for hours and hours.
It's true, and not and not even the Swedish writing made me know. I mean, I knew it even though it was in Swedish. It was the like Reader's Digest World Atlas, and I had the 1956 edition, and that looks like it too. It's like it was so out of date because I was born in 1972, but this book had, you know, human geography and mineral geography. It's right out there. You have to go and have a look, and it's got malachite and like strontium and all the things and the periodic table, and I was in love. It was just like it was absolutely. I was even in love with the book of the Earth. I mean, never mind the actual Earth. It took me a few years to find the actual Earth. But for me, chemistry and geology and cookery and community and embodiment and literature and spirituality all come in together when I'm making paint. And when I foraged up some soil or some ochre, or I found an oak gall and some cherry tree gum, and I go home and I make ink and paint. And then there's chalk from Stonehenge, but I don't dig it. The badgers dig it because they don't like it in their houses. So they dig up the chalk, and it has scratch marks on it, and I collect it in a basket. I take it home. The shells that I put my paint on, I don't find them. The crows and the rooks pick them up and drop them to get the meat out. And they drop them by the river on the hard standing. So then I pick up the shells, they're ready to use. The oak galls, I don't make them. The wasps have their young in them, and then they come out and fly, and then I pick them when they're finished with them. For me, like, I literally have animal helpers. I feel like I'm in a fairy tale, but it's you know, Hans Christian Andersen, and it's not always happy. So there's witches and wolves, and children get eaten, and children still get eaten, but sometimes the eating is by bombs dropped. It's still crap for a lot of people. But the kind of mythic side of literature and earth helps me through that. But for me, because I'm a simpleton, I'm not an intellectual greatness person. I'm just not. For me, I have to embody those metaphors. So finding the things that animals leave and being really grateful. Making paint and painting something with it and giving it away makes me feel grateful and glad. Teaching other people how to make things physically with their hands and seeing their faces light up makes me feel glad. And then it keeps me going. And it keeps a lot of people going, I think. So it's a very simple method, but it's the first time I felt like all of the things come together. And I'm really confident that everyone can find their own way with that, but we keep getting sold things instead. So like, I'm trying to encourage people to just go, you could trust yourself again. You could trust yourself again and listen to Earth, and just those two things will at least make you feel better with your family tomorrow. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. But thanks to the badgers.
Thanks to the badgers. And maybe those words were so beautiful. Shall we let those be the closing words of this session?
Please.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Caro, for coming. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Caroline writes beautifully on Substack as the Uncivil Savant. To find a treasure trove of information on making and foraging paints and art materials, you can check out her books or her Instagram, which is Found and Ground. All links are in the description. This episode was supported by the Veritas Foundation and produced in collaboration with CEMUS at Uppsala University. Thank you so much to them, and thank you for listening. I'll be back in a few weeks with the next episode.